Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Today's podcast guest is Jordan Green of J&L Green Farm and Farm Builders. Now, Jordan's been an acquaintance of mine for a number of years, and we've gone back and forth about farming, about family, and I've actually attended a few events at his farm, and I highly recommend them if you are interested in pastured pork production. He runs an incredible workshops around that. But today's interview dives into a number of subjects. We went into what it's like to farm for 10 years or approaching 10 years and what he's learned over those 10 years. We talked about extreme ownership and the principles that he's used to build his farm and his team. We talked about the difference between interns and pro labor. And we dived into, if you're starting just out as a farmer, what are the best ways to learn new things and take your farming career, get your farming career set right. So join me in this interview with Jordan. Today's podcast episode features Jordan Green, and Jordan is the founder of Farm Builders, which he started in 2017. He's the co-owner of J&L Green Farm in Edinburgh, Virginia, where they started their farm in 2009. And a United States Marine Corps veteran, which he did that in 2004 to 2009, and a graduate of the apprenticeship program at Polyface Farm in Virginia. And he was there from 2001 to 2002. Prior to that, he grew up on his family's homestead in Virginia and has several successful small farm enterprises. So Jordan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Michael. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah. So Jordan, why don't you give us a little bit more about Farm Builders and a little bit more about your farm? That's what's happening there currently.
Sure. Well, we'll start with the farm. We are about to hit our 10th year of being at this thing full time. We started from just some raw piece of land and not much equipment and no animals right after I got out of the Marine Corps in 2009. And it's been a 10-year journey that probably we could not have foreseen the ups and downs and sideways directions it's gone at times, but here we are with a business that's growing, doing well, and we are positive about our forward movement and continuing to grow for down the road. Farm Builder is something that I kind of brainstormed maybe 5 or 6 years ago when I was seeing the rise of YouTube channels and online services that were geared for homesteaders or smaller farms, but there really wasn't much content out there for scaled operations. People who were really looking to do this as a entrepreneurial venture, as a scalable business, where it wasn't just crafting a lifestyle on a farm, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but there was a need for how do you do this stuff at scale? How do you do 10,000 chickens a year, or how do you do 500 pigs a year? So there's a big need there. It was what we were doing. I enjoy teaching and seeing things done in a simple and efficient way. And I felt that there would be a good response for me sharing what we're doing on our farm and kind of using our place as the demo model for, hey, here's how you can do these, pastured, sustainable, regenerative, whatever your favorite word is, livestock systems at scale that can actually support full-time income. So started it off with Facebook. Built a big Facebook group up there, a YouTube channel that we're doing some stuff with. There is a consulting side to the business as well, which is real fledgling at this point. Got a website off the ground and just seeing where it takes us, because farming is our full-time deal. This is kind of our side project, I guess you could say. And it's been neat to see what people are doing around the country and around the world with these principles and learn from them, I'm sure, as much as they are taking from what we're sharing. But just to see this growing community of folks who are getting after this regenerative livestock model and doing it at a larger scale.
Yeah, at a scale that can actually financially support you. It's not like what you do on the weekends. It's not like what you do in your retirement. This is actually making your family's income.
Correct. Yeah, and that's one of the perhaps unspoken or, whispered about, I won't say weaknesses, but that's the word that's coming to mind in the sustainable community right now, is there's a lot of people doing a lot of good things, but it's very hard to make that break from it being the farm activity that you're doing supported by a town job, which I think it's 94% of farmers in the United States are supported by off-farm income, meaning a spouse works in town or they work in town and they both work on the farms in the evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
But there's not a big percentage that have made that jump to the farm being their full-time thing that is, generating all of their income, paying all the bills, paying insurances, life insurance, and churning enough profit to capitalize growth. That's a very small handful of farms in the country right now that are able to achieve that.
Yeah, and it's sad. And we're actually going to dive into that a little bit later. We'll probably, kind of hit on that a little bit harder. Let's talk about why you farm. You've been farming for a while now. You've had significant background in it. You interned or apprenticed at Polyface. Tell us a little bit more your journey and why you say, hey, I want to stay into this. I want to make this my full-time, long-term livelihood.
Yeah, I've always worked outside. So my dad has a landscaping business. I was planting flowers and spreading mulch and running weed whackers at ages, probably so young that CPS would probably haul me off if that was happening today. But 5, 6 years old out there spreading mulch around. Always worked outside. I grew up on a big forest preserve lake in upstate New York. So it was a 2-mile long lake, fishing every day, just chopping down trees in the woods, doing kind of all those, American boy things, pre-digital age and screen time. You had to go outside and entertain yourself.
Yeah.
And so I had a love for outdoors. I could never really see myself being content with an indoor exclusive type of career. And I got my first farm job when I was 15. I called my first non-family job. And it was on a local farm that they had horses, and I was helping with that. And that was wonderful. They also had 2 confinement poultry houses that held 30, 40,000 birds each. And of course, I got plugged into working in those as well. That gave me a big wake up kind of exposure to what commercial commodity ag was. And so I kind of knew at this point I wanted to do something outside. I liked working with animals. Farming seemed cool. Playing with the big boy toys was fun. After a year of that experience, I was like, I don't want to do it this way because that's kind of nasty and stinky. And that led me down the road to going to Polyface. But, why do I farm? The simplest way to put it is it's the sum of everything I enjoy doing. I enjoy working with animals. I enjoy being outside. I enjoy doing something different every day. That's, something real important for my psyche. I've learned is I cannot be stuck in the monotony of a repetitive task day in and day out. So it's actually good for me to have a broad, diverse portfolio of things that need to be done on any given day, and it's going to change the next day. It's a career that allowed me to stay home because I did 2 deployments while I was in the Marine Corps, which were those are great experiences to go see other places around the world, but that's not a very conducive lifestyle to having kids and raising a family. And, it's a business my wife could work in. We are partners in the farm. So we get to be around each other, maybe sometimes to the point where we don't like each other for a few minutes. So, it kind of farming was the sum of that equation of, hey, here's all the things I really like doing. Here's the talents that I have, the abilities that, I've fostered since a young child. And this is the most logical thing to do with this skill set. That's really what brought me here.
Oh, that's great. So let's talk about the sustainability side of agriculture. What to you does either sustainable or regenerative or whatever word you want to use, what does a sustainable farm mean to you?
Yeah, as you know, probably all the listeners do, sustainable has become one of the most overused and washed out terms in agriculture right now. I mean, it's being slapped on everything from, fossil fuels to renewable energy and this whole broad spectrum of stuff. For me, the accepted standard of what sustainable is, it's kind of very, very bland. If you look on like the National Sustainable Agricultural Coalition website or something like that, satisfy human food and fiber needs, enhance the quality of life for farmers and society as a whole. Those are all great and kind of abstract, fluffy things. I've seen a trend, though, in the sustainable community where a lot of folks think that sustainable means a closed system. Where your farm is entirely encapsulated and basically a closed loop of resources, the material you're using, the animals, and so on. And I think that perception has a dark side to it because it has a built-in inefficiency to it. You can't be scaled and good at any one thing if you're trying to close the loop on the entirety of everything that you're doing. So, a lot of what guys like Alan Savory talk about, with the holistic context, addressing what are the needs of you personally, what are the needs of the land, the animals, your community, from an ecological standpoint, from an economic standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, and addressing those needs. That to me should be more of a definition that we're using for sustainable. It doesn't need to be this closed loop on the farm. I don't need to do everything, but I should do a few things at an extreme level of competency and excellence. And for me, sustainable has to have a strong element of control in it. And that's what's really missing in American agriculture today is the vast majority of farmers have no control over what their product is sold at, where it goes to. If you're growing for a commodity system, you do not set the price that you are given for your products. So you don't have control. You have lost the ability to create that sustainable business model because you can't control that most essential element to crafting sustainability. And so, for me, sustainability, I know that was a long kind of loop to come back on the question. Sustainability is, to me, operating inside the ecological context of your particular area, maximizing the amount of symbiosis between everything that you're doing, whether it's livestock, whether it's crops, the soils that you're using, the wildlife, the plant life in the wild around you, and enhancing and preserving those things, but also not beating yourself up because you're having to buy your minerals that are coming out of the ocean. You can't get those on your farm. I can't get kelp anywhere on my farm as hard as I try. The first element of sustainability has to be economic, though. If we cannot fix the economic problems that agricultural faces today, then all of the rest of those points, those are the refinement points. Those are the fine brushes that you take on that canvas towards the end. We got to fix the basic sketch first, and that has to be the economic one to me.
No, that's great. And you're right. They went a little long, but I think all of those points were very poignant, and all of those things are things that people don't think about. It's very hard to break sustainability or regenerative, or as you said, holistic, and I love that word, down into one very small thing, because there's so many different aspects of how you put it together.
Yeah.
All right. As a farmer, there are endless tasks to be done. How do you make sure to focus and tackle your most vital priorities each day?
You just wake up and go out there, and first thing that slaps you in the face is what you take care of, right? So it's something that we struggled with in the early years for sure, and still can be a challenge today. Probably the most helpful bit of knowledge that we've been able to bring to bear on this particular question. If you go back 2015, a book that really changed my life was written by a guy named Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. The book's called Extreme Ownership. That's been followed up by a book last year called Dichotomy of Leadership. But they outline the 4 basic principles that they use for leadership in the SEAL teams, but how to extract that and apply it to a business or to your life. And that really crystallized and made clear what I needed to do to change first myself, because your business really becomes a reflection of who you are. And if you have business problems, you probably have personal problems, and fix those first and the business will follow. So, for this particular question, they have these 4 laws of combat, and one of them that's most applicable is called prioritize and execute. It's having a list of these are the priorities that must be accomplished. You're kind of weighing them to what are the higher priorities to the lower priorities. And when you walk out the door that morning, or when you're sitting there drinking coffee, I'm looking at, all right, what tasks should we have finished yesterday or, last week? Those are going to be the first ones. What are the ones that are critical to accomplish today? Those will be the next. And then what are tasks that we can begin to stage up ourselves to accomplish tomorrow or next week? And if we have time, we can start to facilitate those. So that can be either a list you just write on a notepad that you mentally keep track of, or you use a Wonder List or something, something like that on your phone. But just have those items and you know which one you need to attack first. It really helps clear that fog of your day.
Yeah, and I think that's the number one thing I see farmers struggle with, especially they get into mid-season, they start to spiral.
Yep.
And then when you spiral and you don't know what to focus on, then you start just wasting an inordinate amount of time.
Yeah, you get there's so many things that can disrupt the efficient deployment of your time when you get into stressful situations. You can become, the term that we use in the military is target fixated, where you're so looking at one particular thing, you don't see all these other things that are going on, and they come up and they slap you in the back of the head. Or you are so overwhelmed by the 50 things that you need to do that you get the classic, paralysis by analysis. You're just there stuck in, your little beach ball is spinning on the screen and you don't know what to do, and nothing gets done. The hardest thing for me to do in those situations is you do have to stop, look around, make that list and make the call. All right, this is what I'm going to do. Tackle that problem. Hey, if the pigs didn't get moved, in a timely fashion because we were addressing this other issue, that's okay. Or, if the tomatoes didn't get weeded this week because we were fixing, you can see how this would apply to a lot of different scenarios. But forgive yourself for the things you can't do, but get after it on the things you can do and knock them out.
What is one of your daily habits you feel strongly contributes to your success?
Coffee. I mean, that's my first order of business when I shuffle into the kitchen in the morning, is hitting that button. Yeah, I was thinking about this question. Obviously prioritize and execute is a big element to, knocking out a successful day. I don't have one habit that I would point to, but, get up, get out of bed. Doesn't matter how tired you are, get out there and get to work. And you'd be surprised how much can be accomplished just by doing those.
Yeah.
And take coffee with you.
Yes. Up until about 6 months ago, I didn't drink coffee at all. Then there was some supplements my wife was trying to get me to take, and she figured out the easiest way was to put it with some coffee and some,
Right.
Yes. So anyway, now I'm a daily drinker.
Right. Welcome to the dark roast.
Yes. Okay. As you farm, there are always challenging times or situations that could have devastated or even ruined your farm, but you're persistent, you're still going strong. Tell us about that, because I know you've had some major changes in your business as you've gone along. Tell us, walk us through some of those and how you've kept going.
Yeah, you can never tell when you're starting out on a business what the situations you're going to have to deal with, as you go through it. And there's been several in the last 10 years that we've had to deal with. The biggest one for me personally was about a year and a half into farming. I contracted Lyme's disease, and it was unknown that it was that for a couple years. And so it turned into a chronic state. For anyone who's had Lyme's disease, they know what I'm talking about. And for those who haven't had it, count yourself blessed that you haven't. Because it's one of those things that has, I think, about 600 different known symptoms that can manifest itself. And so I had to address those from a health side by fixing diet and tweaking things there to overcome what was becoming a massive inflammation type of problem. So, I guess a lesson from that is never assume your health is always going to be there for you. There will come a time that it will give out. And fortunately for me, I would say I've made a full recovery from that. I still have to be careful about certain things. I could have a flare up or something like that. But as quickly as you can in your business, begin to build that team that can replace you if necessary. If you are the key person for the success of your farm, which is an essential element when you're starting, not arguing that, but you should get to a point where you can begin to phase yourself out and have other people take over those roles so that it mitigates that risk. If you're a one-man show and the one man goes down, it's over.
Yeah.
And you're folding up. There's been other challenges from a business perspective. We've operated entirely on leased property our entire existence. And, there's always that brings a whole additional set of challenges that you have to deal with that you're working with landowners. They have their priorities for what they want to do with the property. You have yours that you need to accomplish with the business. And so that can lead to friction. And, there's been tense meetings that have had, but, fortunately we've come through those and, survived and carried on. A specific business situation that we've experienced and probably others have as well is when you have that conflict with a landowner. And, they perhaps had a set of expectations in a particular direction, or maybe they changed direction in what they want to do, and you're trying to do your thing. And all of a sudden there's friction in that relationship. Those situations are solved by very good communication, standing your ground on the things that are very important to you. And if you need to walk away. Don't compromise your business to the point where it's no longer viable just to try to fix a situation that's already going sideways. Yeah, it's funny that we've leased and operated on 6, 7, 8 different pieces of property along the way, and our main farm has been here from very early on, but we've had these kind of branch outs to different places. And in my experience, I've never seen a relationship with a landowner recover once they decide that they want to do something different. As soon as you start giving ground on what the original agreement was and shifting what the operation is and trying to conform to these aesthetic requirements or things like that, it's done. You might be able to prolong it a few more years and be able to extract yourself from that situation, but that's kind of a death knell.
Yeah.
Knocking.
Yeah. Well, they hold a lot of the cards. I mean, they are the landowners, which is,
sure.
Even with a great lease, there's so many things they can do to make it difficult for you.
Yeah. Well, would you rather have a lease where each party is disgruntled with each other, but you are operating on the jot and tittle of each sentence in the lease and being tiptoeing around on everything? You may be able to sustain that for a while, but relationally and emotionally, it's going to just drain you. And so in some situations like that, we've just cut ties and said, you know what, rather than us hating each other a year from now, how about we resolve this, that, we're going to pack up, we'll move somewhere else. And, we can see each other, crossing paths in town and, have pleasantries with each other. And it's fine. And we're not in this adversarial type of scenario.
Yeah. Knowing when to do that is key.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we stand on the shoulders of giants, those who have gone before us in the movement. Tell us about the most influential lesson you ever learned from one of your mentors and how it helped you become the farmer you are today.
Well, there's a lot of good principles. So I remember things in 50,000 foot views in principles as opposed to sound bites. So I was thinking through what's one thing that someone said to me that I could latch on to. But it's the principles that you take from these relationships, whether it's a active mentor that I'm talking with on a regular basis, which honestly, I would say right now, I do not have someone like that. I do have a lot of passive mentors, though. These are people that I admire for what they do in a particular area, whether it be in leadership or in agriculture or in entrepreneurship that may have absolutely nothing to do with farming at all. But I know the content they're delivering on that particular topic is sound and good, and I'm gonna extract from them as much as I can. So guys like Joel, obviously. But guys outside of farming, Jocko Willink would be a big passive mentor of mine that, I read a lot of what they've written, have several conversations with him about different things, but I don't call him up on the weekend and, have buddy chat. Andy Frisella is another big guy that I draw a lot of wisdom from an entrepreneurial standpoint.
Yep.
And, he can be very salty in his podcasts and videos. It's not something that you want to have in the van on your way to church and let the little kids listen. But one good point that I think it was either Joel that said it early on, it could have been Alan Nation or something from back there in the ether of my past that is so true, and I pass it on to everyone who comes through here, is never apologize for price. You will go backwards so fast, both mentally and fiscally, with your business if you start apologizing for price. And whether you are producing, high-end grass-fed beef or pastured pork like we do, or really high-end heirloom produce. We're not competing with the fare at the local grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
We are producing a high-end product. And a good analogy to look at that I like to point out is, if you're watching your local TV channel, you always have these ads that pop up for the buy here, pay here car dealership. And what do they always lead with? What's in the bubble banners all over the screen the entire time they're talking about the 2007 Accord that's sitting out there? It's price. They always lead with price because they're selling their product for a price conscientious customer. That is their lead. It's not quality. You don't know whether the thing's going to blow a water pump 2 weeks after you get it. What do you never see, though, when you're, say, watching the Super Bowl and you see a high-end luxury car ad?
Yeah, no
You
price.
never see price. It's in the fine print at the end, probably because it's a legality.
Mm-hmm.
But they do not lead with price. They lead with quality. And, I've never walked into a Ferrari or a Lamborghini dealer, but I doubt you walk in there and negotiate price with them.
Yes, we'll have to do that someday together. That would be fun.
Yes, just experiment with that. But they never apologize for their price because what they are bringing to the market is a high-end quality product. And this happens so many times. And, frankly, it's something we had to catch ourselves when we were doing a bunch of farmers markets when we first started. And you get this pushback from the public on, wow, your stuff is expensive and it's higher cost than it is down at Costco or Walmart or whatever. Do not apologize for the price because we are not selling, we're not selling on a price point. We are selling on a quality point. Now, we can educate and explain why the price is at where it is, but never stand there and say, oh, I'm sorry, let me give you a 20% discount. Because you've immediately eroded the perception of the quality of your product and you've set yourself up for the eternal discount. There are companies that their entire marketing philosophy is built around discounts. A company like Kohl's, they mark a shirt at $200 and it's always 80% off, and you're like, wow, it's such a deal, but you still paid $40 for a shirt.
Yes. Yes.
So never apologize for price. If that can be drilled into the psyche of every farmer in the country, I would do so.
Yeah. My wife, she gets a weekly email every Sunday from Joann Fabrics that's offering her this massive discount every single Sunday.
Right.
Yeah, it's just how they have structured their business model. Yeah.
Right. And she would never go in there saying, I want the highest quality fabric, regardless of price.
Correct.
Yes. It's always, all right, what was on the flyer? Where's this item at?
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. If there was a magic reset button as it relates to starting your farm, what systems would you go back and put in place sooner rather than later, and why?
I'm going to take the question a little bit of a different direction because, there's always things that you could do. Oh, I would put in more water line, or I'd get different equipment, or what have you. You can entertain yourself with those scenarios forever. But what you can't control or maybe don't perceive is what is the outcome if you had done that. What if you had spent 20 grand more on this piece of equipment or that water line or this type of fencing that could have led to a cascade of events where you'd now be out of business. So I don't like to play the what if type of game.
Okay.
With physical, tangible things.
Yeah.
I would say if I were to hit reset, I would focus on communicating better. That, all of these problems that we talked about before with, landowners, with business partners, communication, clear, concise communication where you're relaying what I think, what my thoughts are, and hearing what they're saying and arriving at a conclusion where both of us understand what it is, where our positions are. I think that can address so many other things that cause us stress in a business. We could be stressed that, hey, we don't have this certain piece of equipment. Well, if we didn't have this baseline stress existing from this relationship that's broken over here and that we have this adversarial thing going on, then we wouldn't be as stressed about, the pigs busting out and galloping all over the farm. We just had that happen last night. And, some choice words were spoken that maybe wouldn't have been spoken if I
Yeah.
was less stressed about some things.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the one thing I would change is communicate better, because believe it or not, I'm an introverted person. I can go all day with 3 sentences and I'm happy as a lark. I don't need to talk a lot about stuff.
Mm.
For my type of personality, for that introverted person, it's communicating to the point where you feel like you're oversaturating the people around you with communication. And maybe for an extrovert, it's working on, kind of condensing your communication into actionable points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but communicate better. So many things I think could be addressed with concise communications. And so that's what I would change. Beyond that, I could go down 100 things. Yeah, I would have done this. I would have gotten, better gear or equipment, but those things you don't really know. Yeah, you just you got to get into it and take things as they come down the road and adapt and adjust and do what you can. That's the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that was actually a really good way to, I've never had someone answer it like that. And I think you're hit the nail on the head, because so many things in my background too, as you said, in New York, we rented 7 different pieces of property. One relationship I almost completely destroyed because I didn't communicate. And, eventually we actually worked the situation out. They, and actually came back and offered us the property again to farm. But yeah, it was all because I didn't communicate and they thought I was disrespecting them. In essence, I was just trying to protect something on the property. But yeah, no, communication is so key.
And it's hard to break out of what our culture promotes. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, is, tolerance and acceptance of everyone.
Yeah.
But especially in business, that will kill you. Not that you got to be an intolerant bigot, but you need to be very clear in, hey, this is what I need to have happen for this to work. And if that person says no, okay, that's it. There's no harm, no foul. But having this kind of cloudy, undefined kind of thing, that's what leads to missed expectations, people thinking you were saying one thing and not another. That's what causes the friction. And it's much better to be maybe a little bit abrasive up front, but you're being clear and concise, because man, that muddy water stuff can really have some very harmful ramifications, not only on your business but on your health. And one situation we dealt with 4 or 5 years ago, I had a straight up anxiety attack one night, and it feels like you're dying. And just the stress can pull you apart.
Hey, Michael here. I hope you are enjoying this episode so far. If you are looking to shave hours off your week and become a thriving farmer, you're going to want to head over to growingfarmers.com/free resources. There we have a resource bundle, which contains a bunch of different ebooks that we put together over the years on everything from winter growing to wash and shed efficiency to pastured poultry processes to building your farm and buying the right property. One of the resources I want to highlight is our Profitable Farmers Toolkit. Now, this is something that's been downloaded by over 3,000 farmers. It's a free resource. It contains tips for setting up your farm, financial systems and apps that you can use to track your farm, our favorite tools for the greenhouse, field, and wash and shed, innovative apps for farming, and how to put automated systems in place to make your farm run more efficiently. So if you haven't already, pop on over to growingfarmers.com/free resources and download it today.
So you farm with your wife, Laura. How do you divide roles in the farm? I know you said at the beginning, sometimes you can not like the other person, but I know you have made it work.
Yeah. The most helpful thing that we've done when you first get started, you and your spouse or your partner are probably the only employees on the farm. And so you just do everything and you kind of figure out a division of labor and cover for each other. There has to be a progression. As the business grows, you need to grow. Mm-hmm. And your role needs to change. By year 10, year 15, year 20 in a business, you shouldn't be doing the same stuff you were doing in year 1, year 2. Mm-hmm. And something that we started doing 4 or 5 years ago that was tremendously helpful for us is we compartmentalize the business. And we're 100% in livestock. We don't do any produce. So it's very easy for us to draw a line that if it has hooves, it's my responsibility. And once it doesn't have hooves, it's hers. And so I handle all of the production side, the operations, out in the field, everything that's involved with that. And then once that animal is on the trailer going down to the processor, it is all on her. So she does, she sets up the schedule, and obviously we have communications between the two of us about this. So I know how many to produce, and she knows when to schedule these things. But once it's on the trailer and it's going down to our USDA processor, I don't even think about it anymore. She does all the cut sheets, the logistics of either bringing the product back here or to cold storage, and then obviously she handles all of our marketing and sales and order fulfillment and social media, and all of that. All of that is her area that I rarely poke my nose into.
Yeah. And if you don't have to think about that, it empowers you to focus more on the production.
Correct. Yeah. I forget who wrote it. I don't know if it was a book or a blog post about it. It was the notion that you only have so many quality decisions that you can make per day or per week. And you have to forgive me for not remembering where it came from, but really you have to clear that mental table. It's going to be different for different people. Maybe you can only make one quality decision a day. Maybe you can make a dozen. But if you are so stretched out that you can't make any, that's bad. So now there's 50% of the decisions that need to be made for our business to be successful. I no longer have to weigh the pros and cons of those individual items or the nuance of it. Instead, we can sit down or have a pillow conversation with the bullet points of, hey, this is what I want to do with XYZ. Does that sound good? Yep. And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's off and going.
No, that's good. What is the biggest mistake, or what are the biggest mistakes that you see beginning farmers making?
And I can speak from experience on this one because we did the same exact thing. Starting out too diverse. And I know that stems from what the sustainable regenerative pasture-based movement is all about, is having multiple species in symbiotic relationships on the pasture, and you're doing everything. That's a mistake, though, I think, to push out and by year 2 try to have 8-10 different things going on with the farm. You have to build, this is in my opinion and in our experience, we did that. By year 2, we had 8 different enterprises going on the farm. We had egg layers, we had duck egg layers, we had sheep, we were lambing, producing finished lamb, we had beef, we were doing broilers, turkeys, getting into pigs. And so you got all this stuff going on, which is wonderful, but not any one of them is a seasoned enterprise. And not any of them is a core enterprise. You have to have one enterprise that is your core enterprise that's scaled out to where it is now efficient. It is supporting several salaries. Then you can attach these other things around it where, hey, you don't have to push the egg layers to generate 30, 50 grand of free net income a year. You can have it attached on with 500 layers if you want to. And you don't have that pressure because your beef operation is your centerpiece, or your pigs are, or whatever it happens to be. When you're starting a business, you already have so many things to do. You are starting from square one. You have to figure out everything. You got to decide, hey, which digital system am I going to use for accounting? Which accountant am I going to use that actually knows what we're trying to do and is going to work with us? Your mental capacity is already going to be stretched incredibly far, and you're not going to have time to operate 6-10 different things at any level of sustainability. The second thing that I see a lot of mistakes made for starting farmers is they become too production focused. That, when you have that conversation of, hey, you want to start a farm, they're very excited about it. They're reading a ton of books and looking at property, of course, and all that. Most of their focus is on production, and they're not looking at how to actually sell the product they're producing. Is there a viable market in that area for Mangalitsa pork? Or, is there a viable market for 6 tons of greens a week? Or, some kind of niche thing that they really want to do and are passionate about, which is great. But if the focus is 100% on production when you're starting, you've left out the most important element, believe it or not, of a direct-to-retail farm is the retail segment. And if that's not addressed first and very strongly up front, it's always going to lag behind production, and it's going to impact your cash flow moving forward and the very viability of that model in the first place.
No, absolutely. That is so key. Yeah. So, what one strategy or recipe that if farmers and their teams could consistently apply would compound into big wins for them?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to extreme ownership. If it's a book that you haven't read yet, go ahead and buy it. And I know I'm plugging them here, but having a clear system of leadership for your business, even if it's just you and your spouse, that is going to go much further than any piece of equipment or property or animal or vegetable that you are producing. If you can have the people side of a business set in a way that's productive and successful and clear, you can do anything. You can tackle any problem. The principles they're outlining are principles they use in urban combat against ISIS. If you can't think of any more intense environment than that, then surely it will work fine herding a few swine across the field. Yeah. Here in Virginia, no one's shooting back at you. The people side of any business is the most important. And if you've got good people and you have clear leadership and communication on what you're doing, the other stuff will fall into place.
No, I completely agree with you on that. So to that point, one challenge that many farms face is finding, hiring, and keeping great teams. What strategies have you implemented to bring on the right kind of team members?
It's absolutely the hardest thing for us and many other farms. The very common issue right now is finding people that want to work in this type of industry. People like to complain about the millennials and all that. All of our employees are millennials and they get after it, but we do have to filter through a pretty big pool of potential to find the people that we want. For years, we ran an internship program, similar to what Polyface would do, because, you just copy success. I need labor here, so I'll just go do what these guys are doing. And, that had some levels of success and failure. We ended up moving away from that after a while because you cannot address a labor problem with interns. And I know a lot of folks try to do it, but I should say that you can't address a labor problem with interns in a quality way. You may be able to get a bunch of people to work on your farm, but it's going to be even harder for you as the owner to do that well, because it does not free up your time. It ties up more of your time because they are there to learn and they are giving themselves and their labor at a reduced rate in exchange for knowledge. And so you can't just plug them out in the field and say, hey, this is the work we need done. Have at it. We've moved in the last 3-4 years to a pro staff only. That's what I call them. So we are looking for quality people, local people that we can train for the long term, that are willing to stay here and treat it as a career. And those are hard people to find. It's a lot of screening. It's probably 25 or 30 screenings to find one person. And that has been a lot more successful than the other models that we've used. So find quality people, have simple systems that have efficiency in them, and we can get a lot done with a very small staff of professionals as opposed to a large staff of novices and interns. We are running an entire operation. On my side, on the operation side, it's me and one other person. And on the marketing side, Laura's side, it's her and one other person. And we are accomplishing everything we do with that labor pool. We are trying to add in another person on the operation side right now, but we're in process of screening for that.
Okay. So let's move into that, talking about your marketing. What channels do you focus on?
The big channel would be direct to retail. And that's the biggest percentage of our sales platform. Like other people have talked about, you want to have diverse outlets for your product. So we have on-farm store and we have drop sites, which would be very similar to a buying club model. We do some wholesale to farm stands and co-ops and so on. The other big area would be live animal sales. We do sell a lot of piglets to other farms. So we do have, a little bit spread out on where we do our product, but the focus is moving that base animal through a process of value addition to the point where a sale will transact at a profit. So, if we can't sell a piglet at a profit, we'll move it on to, just fast forward all the way to a 300-pound finished pig. And, if we can't sell it as a 300-pound finished pig, then can we sell it as, by the piece in the farm store, USDA cut, pork chops, bacon, sausage? If we're struggling to move product at that level, could we have moved it wholesale somewhere else? And, this is not all the same pig. We're talking about the general theory of marketing here. If we can't move enough product in those venues, can we add more value and sell it at another point? Can we do sausage, egg, and cheese muffins at a farmer's market? Can we do snack sticks that we can ship all over the country? So whether it's the piglet or whether it's the snack stick, we're going to make a profit on it. We now have the freedom to move those animals through whatever one of those outlets has a need in the marketplace. So we can move a bunch of piglets at different times, maybe not at other times. We can move a bunch of finished hogs at different times, maybe not another time. Maybe we need to put a big group in the freezer and hold it in inventory for a while. We can do that. But we have that freedom because we are controlling, this is going all the way back to the sustainability discussion, that we're taking control of that price and we are deciding at what point we can transact that sale and make a profit on it. That's been our most essential element for marketing success, is never being desperate to move a product. The kind of commandment, thou shalt not be desperate. Never have a fire sale on something, because discount is 100% coming from your profit margin.
Yeah, I was just talking to a farmer the other day that ended up moving a large quantity of garlic at $2 a pound. And he was like, yeah, we were desperate for cash. And I was like, yeah, right. That's got to hurt.
Yeah, and you do what you got to do to survive, but that can't be the long-term model.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So where do you spend your time and effort in promotion? What seems to work particularly well for you guys?
The most effective effort is relationships.
Okay.
You can spend some money and get a lot of traction, or a lot of views and clicks on Facebook or Instagram, or generating an email list. But what builds that quality customer? And this is someone who's going to spend $2,000 to $5,000 a year with us. That almost every time is built on relationship. That they either come upon the store and we, get to know them, build that relationship over the quality of the product, the quality of the eating experience that they're looking for, or, if they were just wanting to support local farms. One of the biggest events we did last year was a homeschool day, where we just, I think it was on a weekday, and it was like, hey, homeschoolers, bring your kids and we'll spend 4 hours on the farm and, just let them run themselves out. And we had 400 people show up. So
wow.
It was pretty amazing. And, from that 400, relationships were built with maybe a dozen of them that are now regular customers. So that's what is so missing in marketing today, that it's very easy to make a video, to do an Instagram post and Facebook, and we do all of that, and send emails, and we do all of that as well. But what is lacking, and what really will get the best return on your time, is building that relationship with those people that would be your best customer.
Yeah.
Reaching out to them, it would be surprising how much of marketing Laura does on Facebook Messenger and texting with individual people. Hey, I saw you didn't make an order this month. Is there something going on? And sometimes, I forgot about it. I'll get something in right now. Or it's, hey, we're on vacation.
Yeah.
And, we'll be back next month. Occasionally it's been, hey, husband got laid off. We just don't have money for anything this month. And Laura will say, all right, well, I'm going to bring you some sausage and eggs anyway, because you've been a good customer for, however long. That cements a customer's loyalty to you in a way that I don't think any other method can really rival.
Yeah, no, that is huge. All right, so let's wrap this interview up with a few final questions here. Imagine you're standing in front of future farmers, people who are just thinking about getting started. They haven't done anything yet. What 2 or 3 strategies would you recommend they focus on to best ensure success?
Be adaptable. There's a lot of emphasis put on business plans, and, to have a written out step-by-step process of, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to produce it. This is how we're going to market it. A lot of times, 4 out of 5, 9 out of 10, I don't know what the percentage would be on it. That plan is in the shredder within a year or 2 years. That once you engage the marketplace and you engage your production model, you will see opportunities open that you didn't see before. And if you don't have a posture of adaptability going into it, you cannot take advantage of those. If you put in, best example would be if you put in a commercial broiler CAFO house, which, it's going to cost $700,000 to put in one of these things. You can't do anything else except broiler chickens in that house. Now it's a very efficient at what it does, but it is entirely stripped of adaptability. So when starting out, if you can have that mindset of being adaptable, which means you have to be flexible in your mindset of, hey, I'm fine to allow the business to flow and morph into whatever opportunity will open, underneath this context of what you're all about. No one's saying strip all the topsoil off the pastures and, make a profit. But, once your context is set, be adaptable. When we started, we thought chickens would be our number one enterprise. It's never been close. But fortunately, through blind, dumb luck, we were poor enough that we didn't drop a bunch of money into chicken stuff. We were able to pivot and adapt into what the availability, what the market wanted, where the opportunity was, and that turned out to be pigs. And that's the direction that we've gone into. And, this is a principle that you can pull from military philosophy that, when you approach a target, and then in this scenario, target would be the success of our business. You're going to probe that front and see where the gap is, where the opportunity in the defense is. That's what you're going to exploit. That's where you're going to rush through. You're not going to attack this strong wall over here. You're going to flank around and come in from the backside, or you're going to go up this little seam in the line. And that's the same principle in building a successful marketing business is, hey, there might not be a market for more pork chops in this area. But what that probably means is there's a very good market for piglets because there's already a lot of pork chops floating around. Is there enough piglets? Or is there an opportunity for something like a sausage, egg, and cheese muffin because no one's really doing that? So be adaptable and be willing to morph into something maybe a little bit different than what you thought you were going to be when you started out. Second thing I would say is focus. What becomes clear, the direction you need to go in, that's what you got to focus on, and you've got to hammer on that for a while. And that ties right in with my third point on it is you have to be willing to grind. Success is not going to happen in 2 months. It's not going to happen in 6 months. It's going to be a long campaign of grinding in a particular direction to achieve success in it because there's a big learning curve to everything that you do. It takes time for these processes to kick in and become efficient, and be willing to stick it out 5-7 years. You really start to see a breakthrough in that 6, 7, 8 year mark where hey, the momentum and the inertia of this thing is rolling in the right direction.
Absolutely. If you could pick one farming tool, what would that be?
Well, I would say there's two here. My favorite farming tool for what we do, because we work in the woods a lot, is I love chainsaws.
Okay.
That's a great tool to have. You can accomplish so much. It's a fun tool for me. I would not say it's necessarily the most important tool. Honestly, for what we do, the most important tool is a communication tool. And so that's going to be a cell phone.
Okay.
I can access any of the data that I need to for our operation. We keep everything on Google Drive. So, I can just pull out smartphone, flip through whatever I need to, say we need to know when a particular set of sows is going to farrow because we got to move some stuff into position for it. I can find that out real fast. If I need to take a note on something, hey, this cow, yellow 53 had a calf, something like Google Keep, just put it in right away.
Yeah.
If I need to look something up, the unlimited pool of information at your fingertips is the most, one of the most important tools that you can have as far as effectiveness in, getting the job done.
Yeah.
But, I do like my toys. I love skid steers, tractors, all those kind of things. The right tool for the right job just makes my soul feel at peace.
Yes. No, I get that. Yes. And as you said, it's not just a tool, it's the right tool because then it works well and you're making positive traction forwards.
Yeah, it's a balance, of course, that you can spend money to have the right tool that's going to get the job done in 10 seconds, or you can have a okay tool that'll get it done in 20 minutes. And that's, a decision you have to conscientiously arrive at in each scenario. I would love to go spend, $250,000 on some equipment right now that would make my life easier, but that does not make economic sense. So I must restrain myself.
Yes. Yeah.
I must suffer.
Yeah, but as you've said in the past and on different things, projects on your farm, you always have that list of equipment out there, which you say, this piece of equipment would make me so much more efficient. I'm always going to keep my eye out. Like, you're doing your own feed grinding now, and that's saving you large amounts of money.
Yeah, it's helpful to always have a little stash of capital there for the opportunities that, hey, we know this piece of equipment would be really helpful to have, and you never know when it's going to pop up. And if you're the first one there, you can get it. Did this a couple of weeks ago. I've been looking for several years for a dump trailer, and used ones are almost as expensive as new ones. Mm-hmm. And just have been looking, and then just kind of slacked off looking for a while. And 2-3 weeks ago, getting ready for bed, just have Facebook Marketplace open, just browsing around. And of course it's robot overlords know what I want. And so it, throws us up, hey, dump trailer. And I look at it, and, this is probably a $15,000 dump trailer, brand new. This was a used one. It had just hit the marketplace, and it was for $5,000.
Oh my gosh.
And, basically being fire saled.
Yeah.
And so I messaged them right away. I was the first one in line. And, was there when they said the next day to come look at it. There were 16 other dudes behind me that wanted it.
Wow.
You know what? I was able to swoop in, get the piece of equipment that is already at work on the farm at, probably half of what it would cost in a typical used market.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that aspect of buying used, if you jump on it, and, I lost something the other day that if I had he told me, at 8:30 p.m., why don't you come on over? I was like, I'm kind of wrapping up for the day. And again, I didn't really need it. So it really wasn't high priority. But if it had been high priority, I would have gotten in my vehicle at 8:30 and driven the 40 minutes over there and paid for it right then. Because again, I lost a $1,000 welder that the guy was selling for $200 because I didn't drive then. He told me he'd save it, and you never want to, take him at their word, because if someone comes in and offers him $400, he's gonna take that $400.
Right.
So,
you gotta be ready to pounce, but you also have to be disciplined about it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So final question here. Do you believe that now is the best time to start a farm?
Yeah, there's no time like the present. We started our farm in, honestly, in 2008 is when we began the mental preparation for it and the preliminary work that was right in the beginning stages of the economic downturn. We launched our farm in June, July of 2009, and the economy was still sliding down pretty aggressively at that point. Almost everyone told us it was a bad idea and that it would fail, and that we were stupid to get out of the military, which is one of the most secure jobs on the world that you can have, to do this. There's never going to be a better day than right now, because you can start working right now. And if waiting for the economy to turn around or for this thing to align, you're always going to have an excuse then. If it's, I'm waiting till the weather gets better, or I'm waiting till, grandpa gives me the inheritance, or what have you, there will always be something available to you to give you reason not to. And so there's no time like right now to start. Now, that doesn't mean be a fool and go quit your job today and you have no money and you're just going to run out on the field and say, here I am, success find me, because I'm an entrepreneur now. Mm-hmm. You have to be smart about this. You have to engage, some knowledge, but there's a lot of things that you can do right now that don't involve spending any money. There's a lot of things that you can begin to look for, like we were talking about. Keep your feelers out for maybe a piece of equipment that would be helpful for your one-day operation. And if you find it at a deal now, you can get it. You could be very intentional right now about piling up capital, because it does take capital to start a farm, especially a livestock farm. Get 2-3 extra jobs that you can hold that money for. These are all steps that you are taking for your future farm. So this is an action towards starting a farm that's not necessarily out there with mud on your boots. When the opportunity comes to actually start the farm, default aggressive is the term I like to use, that you are going after what you want with an aggressive stance. You're not kind of feeling around the edges and beating the bush and all that. You're going for what you want to do, and you're making decisive movement in that direction. And that may be working on a farm. I would always recommend someone work on a farm similar to what you want to do for several years first. Learn on someone else's dime to figure out if you actually want to do this thing before you go out and drop $250,000 on a piece of property and get a bunch of animals. And 2 months later, you're like, hey, this kind of sucks. And you're locked into it. Work for someone else. There's so many things you can do before you actually pull the trigger on your own enterprise. And today's the best day to get started on them.
No, that's great. And we'll wrap it up with that. Thank you, Jordan, so much for your time today. Thank you for your service to our country. We appreciate that. And thank you so much for what you're doing for farmers all around the world with your groups and with your education. Yeah, you're a leader in an industry, and we respect all that you do.
Thanks so much for having me.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. I'd love if you'd hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. As we approach the end of season 1, our season finale will include my favorite takeaways and we'll answer your top questions. Please go to thrivingfarmerpodcast.com/contact and leave us a question you'd like us to answer. If you want to keep the conversation going, join us in our Your Success